Good day, podcast community. Our next speaker, know more, choose better, the power of paying attention. Tubb has been in this industry for years. And so we met at our 50th high school reunion, reconnected, and realized we had so much in common on our journey. So I invited him to be part of our community by really sharing this information with you. So, Jay, thanks so much for taking the time to be here. I would love for you to share with our community. Know more, choose better, the power of paying attention.
Yeah. Well, as somebody who's had a few learning difficulties myself, I must say focus has not always been the easiest thing for me. So I work in the natural foods industry, and I can testify to the power of what's in food to help your brain. If you don't get the right nutrients, your body can't work correctly, and your brain can't either. Of course, that's the biggest organ of your body. Well, I would say a second biggest after your skin, technically. So knowledge is power. I'm really big into reading labels. Being in the natural foods industry, I've learned, just as a salesperson, I need to tell my customers that I sell natural foods to what's in a product. And I'm in that industry because it stands for things I believe in. I like to think it makes the world a little bit better place to have better food. And it's really up to all of us to educate ourselves. We can rely on the government or other medical officials to tell us their version of the truth, but there's nothing that compares to really educating yourself to know what, dyes and preservatives are in products and what their effects on the body can be. And along those lines, you do get what you pay for. For instance, with organic food, a lot of people complain about things being more expensive, and there's that tendency to want to, think that we're paying for something that's not really worthwhile. But I'll tell you, the organic food standards in this day and age have come leap years. It used to be that there were separate organizations, one in California, one in Oregon, that certified organic foods until the industry got big enough, and then the USDA got involved, and now there's official national standards for organic food. And they're much more sustainable. There's I don't know if you know much about Monsanto and GMO ready crops, but they make crops resistant to pesticides, to pests, not the pests. So they can use things like Roundup on them, and it won't kill the plant, but it'll kill the bugs. But that doesn't mean that the products won't still have the pesticides on them when you process them. So always read the ingredients in food, educate yourselves, pay attention. It's not like we have an instruction manual of how to do things, but I know in my life, I've known so many people who died from cancer. Both my grandparents, friends in here in the area where I live who have, and often it's kind of represented as being random. And God knows there are a lot of chemicals in our environment that we don't have a lot of say on, what we.
Oops. Can you hear me, Jay? You froze.
Yes. Yeah, I saw the spiraling death wheel.
Okay, yep, that means that you froze. So why don't we do this? I want to ask you a few questions about what you just shared with our viewers so they can
Okay.
kind of get another perspective. I used to work for Kraft Nabisco years ago, and I just noticed in the paper the other day that they're pulling a dye out of a lot of the foods. And so
Yes.
you're seeing kind of the start of being more aware of what we put in our bodies, because I've always noticed
Yeah.
that in other countries they don't have the massively produced products that we have available here in the US. So there's not that pesticides, control things, different things they put in there to preserve it. Well, there's consequences to anything artificial we put in foods. So, what do you see? Like, have you seen in your travels a kind of a mindset switch or mindset change that people are more aware of what is going into their body through reading labels and being aware of the health today versus 5, 10 years ago?
Oh yeah. One of the biggest trends in the natural and organic foods industry is what they call better for you versions of mainstream products. Uh, there's a company that I work with that makes uh, cleaner versions of all the mainstream cereals like Frosted Flakes and Cheerios, Rice Krispies. They have like organic or gluten-free versions of those. And that's a move, keeping the product familiar to people, but having a better version. I mean, there's even a company that makes organic M&Ms and Twix, better for you versions of basically candy. Um, but you have to go where the with products where people are going to want to buy them. Not everybody's going to want to buy tofu or tempeh. I mean, as there are some really great products with those, but um, you got to address people in their comfort zone.
Yeah. Do you feel like in your work and what you're doing, touching the consumer, touching the retail outlets that are delivering healthier options, there's always a balance between what is healthy and what is affordable? Do you think America is more aware of the whole idea you got to spend more to get higher quality, and that higher quality means better results in most cases? Do you think that we're making that mindset switch in America, that we don't mind paying a little bit more for getting better products because we've seen the consequences of cheap things that we put into our body? Do you
Right.
see that out there in the marketplace?
Yeah. I mean, look, 100 years ago, all the food grown was pretty much all organic because they didn't have other choices. But they discovered that nitrogen's really good, so you can put chemicals, fertilizers on your products and have them grow twice as fast, but it doesn't necessarily make them twice as nutritious. So people are largely gotten onto that idea that you get what you pay for. Uh,
Hmm.
and there is proof. I mean, there's all sorts of organizations besides the USDA, the Organic Trade Association. There's companies that report back, kind of like Consumer Reports, but it's what they call the dirty dozen uh, plants like strawberries and spinach and kale that are the most sprayed up, fertilized products. I know, I've had personal experience, for instance, with a regular Red Delicious apple versus an organic Red Delicious apple, and you could taste the difference.
Yeah.
You're putting real stuff into what you're eating rather than something that gives a greater profit.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel about 2 years ago, I had a client many years ago, and it was Bio Coffee, which was a more organic coffee. And so I was buying it from a health food store rather than Amazon. And when I went in the health food store, I hadn't been in let's say a few years, 3, 4, 5 years. I was surprised at all the products, and they had education attached to them, like a webinar, like a podcast, like an explanation to help the end user know more about the outcome or the benefits of the products. Do you see that up in your area, that more natural food retailers are leaning on education that did maybe
Yes,
years
definitely. I mean, I used to work at a health food store where we set up lectures, a series of lectures in the fall and the spring. When that's when the best attendance was.
back?
But educating people on different health topics, from nutritionists and chiropractors and other natural doctors.
Yeah, because it's not hard to see how diseases have popped up in the last 25, 35, 40 years, whether it's autism, Alzheimer's, cancer. And these usually, when you trace it back, sugar has really quadrupled, all
Yeah,
kinds of increase, and it has affected the way we perform. And so I think America is more tuned in to what they can do to get back to more natural things. Because I had Molly on our podcast last week, and she is farm to table, which she has an online business, and she brings the farmers to the consumers, having many options for the farmers to get their products into the hands of, besides, to say, the Publix, the Krogers, the Walmarts of the world that aren't as uh, dialed into the individual as they might want to be. So my question is like, are we truly ready as a culture to pay more to get more quality?
I think so. I mean, not everybody, but you have your top percentage, like the top 20% of consumers
Mm-hmm.
um, who recognize the value of health food, organic food. There's all they say there are people who dabble in natural foods, and the whole success of the industry can be witnessed by the fact that you can now find organic and natural foods in most mainstream grocery stores, whether it's in a particular aisle or integrated with the regular products. But that's I think the best testimony to the popularity is people voting with their dollars.
Yeah, we talked about on one of our podcasts last week about we both share the active brain, or society calls it ADD. So I know, having been diagnosed back when I was a teen, I always knew when I limited my sugar, I performed better. But I
Mm,
never had the confidence to get off like Ritalin and Adderall, because every time I did, I would crash from the standpoint didn't have the focus, and I just didn't have the skills to manage it. But I've always been on a less sugar because of that, and I've always performed better. It wasn't until the last 2 years that I'm drug free, which has been something I never thought I could do, because
Right.
we get off and then all of a sudden it was like no focus, and I get overwhelmed at work. And then before you know it, I'm starting to tailspin and go south in depression because you get overwhelmed. And I always told people it wasn't clinical, it was occupational, meaning I
Right.
didn't have skills to be able to manage, because you've seen Adderall. I missed it one time in between insurances, and the bill for 30 pills was almost $900.
Wow.
$900. Now, the person that messed up the insurance because we were switching over, she had to pay that because she said, "Oh, just get it and I'll take care of it." Well, I thought she was going to like bill back the company, but no, she took care of it all right. She took it out of her money. So
Wow.
you look at 30 pills, $900. I mean,
Yeah.
insurance was picking up all over the year. So I was paying about $30 with insurance. But when you take insurance out of these medications, they're like so expensive versus me. I now learned how to have better skills, to have better focus through natural things, not needing a pill. Have you
Right.
ever have you ever experienced anything with the active brain that you could share with our viewers that has worked for you, because you're in the health food business, you're around healthy products? I used to take Focus Factor for years.
Right. Um, well, I think one of the ingredients in that formula, ginkgo. Ginkgo sends more blood flow to your brain, so that helps you think
Mhm.
better. Um, Phosphatidylcholine. There's a lot of really good ingredients that help the brain out.
Mhm.
And yeah, staying away from sugar
Mhm.
is a good idea. I mean, the average American eats 150 pounds of sugar a year,
Wow.
which
Wow.
is not the way we were designed. And that's why there's such a high rate of diabetes in this country.
Mhm. I noticed that in my travels that I was always aware, but it's hard to get away from the quick pill. It's like take the pill, get the results. And you
Right.
have to be patient with changing your diet, experimenting with things and seeing what works, because it's not a quick solution, which is one pill.
Well, which is what a
Okay.
lot of people want. They just want a magic pill.
Yeah.
Uh, Thus, the huge uh, diet industry, which will sell you. I remember I worked for a company at one point that had, at the same time, they had carb blockers and they also had fat blockers.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, doesn't it make more sense to just not adjust what you're eating? Don't eat the fat, don't eat the carbs, rather than taking something to block that ingredient. Um, that's where making better choices comes in.
Yeah. I was involved with Planters Peanuts and Nabisco when RJ Reynolds bought them. And so they were, cigarettes were going down, and they just took some of their strategies over into food, because they had done what in cigarettes to make people addicted to it. And they just
Right.
kind of put a little bit of spin on it. And so those Oreo cookies and all that snack food got so addicted because you can't eat one, the old potato chip thing. But
Right.
that's not what is good for the body. But companies generally are looking at selling more bags of cookies and bags of potato chips. So the more they can make it, you crave for it, the better. So I think it does see, I do see more health food stores popping up, more grocery stores having larger sections with natural food. What do you see like in the next couple years from what you've seen so far? What kind of insight that based on your background do you see the industry changing to help people have better, healthier options?
Well, home delivery has really taken off since COVID, um, and that that bodes well for natural or organic foods. Um, Upcoming trends. I mean, there's always some new uh, thing that people latch onto, like kale. Kale was really huge for quite a while. It's still out there. It just doesn't get the publicity. Um, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's
community supported agriculture, like the other my Molly is involved in it. I think that's a really important direction to go, because if some huge disaster happened that disrupted our uh, communication and transportation of food in this country, uh, unless you have a backyard garden, you need a connection to farmers.
Yeah. Yeah. She even said when she was on the podcast that she grew up with a garden. Her dad, her parents had a garden. They canned foods, they ate fresh. So she got introduced to natural foods. And then she had a restaurant and did some of that. But then with kids, it's hard to run a business in a when you're raising kids to be in a brick and mortar. So that's when she transferred in to be able to get the farm to table concept
Right.
to as many people as possible. Yeah, I never thought about it until you just said it. I'm a big Amazon user.
Yeah.
I like the repetition of things. Like if I buy it once and I'm going to use it, I don't want to have to think about buying it again. I just put it on reputation, the auto.
Subscription. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because the more decisions we make, like I wear the same shoes, I have very little clothes that I use because I don't want to think about it. And it came to
Right.
my attention after a stroke was that we put so much pressure on our brain because if you look at social media, if you're on there for the averages between 2 and 3 hours and you're scrolling, you're saying, do I like it? Do I comment? Do I share it? Well, you're putting on your brain a judgment. And if you do that, it's 1,000 judgments a day. Well, you're going to be fatigued because
Yeah.
you're asking your brain to process, and we don't have unlimited processing. We wear out. And when we wear out, our energy goes down, and then we get more susceptible to stuff we probably shouldn't eat because we're tired
Right.
of the energy. So, what would you? I want to give our viewers, an idea of the future of education. We would love for you to come back to keep educating our community on the choices that we make. We always want choices, good choices, but if we don't know about certain things, we just are like the same thing. I buy the same thing until it captures our attention, till you bring some light to certain things. Because you're right, home delivery. I went in a Kroger to buy something. I don't usually go to Kroger.
Right.
There was stacks and stacks of these containers that are being shipped out. They must do it at night where they fill it and ship it out. I couldn't believe how many were there. And I knew that it was growing, but I didn't see it firsthand because my Publix doesn't display that. But the front of the store had all these bins and all these products in bags. So the
Yeah.
world is changing too.
Oh yeah. I have to go into Whole Foods on a regular basis for my job, and often I will see more Amazon shoppers, which is kind of like Instacart,
Yeah.
in the store. More of those shoppers than actual consumers. They're
Yeah.
buying, they're
It's
picking
hey,
food for people's orders.
we want to be able to get things. I mean, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, he saw the future because speed and getting things quickly is what we want. And to be
Right.
able to get a drone drop something in within 2 hours. I mean, it's getting faster and faster. It used to be 2 days. It was fine.
I'll believe that when I see it.
I know. I'm like drones flying across the air. I don't know. I'm ready for that, but I don't know if I'm ready for self-driving cars too. But
Well,
they're coming. They're coming.
yeah.
So Jay, what would you want our viewers to take home from what we've shared today? What would be the most important thing you'd want them to take home?
Well, I would say that you have the power to affect your health the most by choosing carefully what you eat. You know, what you put in your mouth becomes part of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And is that going to be a good food for your body and mind?
Awesome. If you're a health food store, you're into health, please share this video with people that are ready for those kind of choices, because you are what you eat. That's been around for many years, but it's more important today than it was years ago because we're seeing the outcome of people making not the best choices, diabetes, just different things that we're finding out there. So we'll put your information in the show notes for our viewers, but share this with people that they may have a health food store and they need a person to help them, guide them through better choices for their consumers that are coming in with wanting more education.
Yeah, I'll be glad to help anybody. I've been in the natural foods industry for almost 40 years. So I've seen a lot.
I love it. 40 years tells me some information and some insights that you could share with our community. Thank you so much, Jay. Appreciate you being with us.